my first Wimbledon title. My partner was Martina Navratilova. She motioned for me to come over. She, was pointing down to the cracks in the court. And she'd say, now, if you can serve and hit that particular mark, you're going to get this incredible bounce.
Alcaraz is still not 23, so what he has done for his age is not also normal.
You adore him, you love him. You could watch him all day. Let's just say that. Carlos Alcaraz, Nat Sawyer,
was that really obvious?
all day, she adores you. Just saying that again.
No one has mentioned Djokovic. I mean, this is a man that is hungry for one more, guys. It's a big one.
I just don't know whether he really, truly has the motivation to go anymore.
It was Carlos Alcaraz's summer in 2024 at the European Grand Slams, whilst Iga Swiatek and Barbara Krejcikova won the women's titles.
One on the clay courts of Paris, the other on the pristine grass of southwest London. Roland Garros and Wimbledon capture the imaginations of sports fans around the globe.
But there's already so many interesting stories developing this year, from Jannik Sinner's doping ban to Madison Keys' maiden Grand Slam victory, and questions around Novak Djokovic. You throw in the Andy Murray quotient in there. Is he still going to be around? Is he not? We're going to address all of that as well, and his ability to keep competing at the highest level.
But who should we watch out for as the tennis circus heads to Northwestern Europe? We've got everything you need to know on this episode of This Sporting Planet.
Edward Russell here with Todd Harris, Natalie Sawyer, and Suhail Chandhok. Plus, we'll be chatting to someone who knows what it's like to taste victory at both Roland Garros and Wimbledon later on as we preview the Grand Slam tennis season in Europe. But first, as ever, we need to run you up to speed on everything that's been happening across the globe since we last spoke. There's always a lot, isn't there? And we'll start with me in my part of the world. Roberto Firmino was named as the most valuable player of this season's AFC Champions League Elite Tournament. That was after helping Al Ahly Saudi FC to the title. Now, they defeated Japan's Kawasaki Frontale 2-0 in the final in Jeddah to lift their first Asian title. It was then quietly announced that Bobby would be leaving the club, where they return to Brazil looking the most likely. And finally, 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao, the Pac-Man, has confirmed he's ending his 4-year retirement to enter the ring once more, this time against Mario Barrios for his WBC welterweight title. He'll reportedly fight the 29-year-old American in July in Las Vegas, and that will come soon after his induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame that's happening in June. He announced that just hours after he conceded defeat in his bid for another seat in the Philippine Senate. So I guess he was just seeing which one happened, and if that happened, then he wouldn't box, and because it didn't happen, now he's going to be back in the ring.
Yes, that's a lot of mixed reaction over here, actually, that Manny Pacquiao announcement, just because of his age, and you sort of think, is it really wise to be getting back into the ring? But I guess with all these things, it's money talks at the end of the day. And maybe that's why we're seeing him back fighting once more. Here are some of the things that have stood out for me in Europe. In the world of horse racing, trailblazing jockey Rachel Blackmore has retired from the sport with immediate effect. She became the first female jockey to win the Grand National. That was back in 2021. She's also won the Champion Hurdle and the Cheltenham Gold Cup as well. And she signs off with 575 winners in her career. Very impressive. We now know who will contest Wembley's richest game in football. That is the Championship playoff final. Sheffield United eased their way past Bristol City with an impressive successive 3-0 wins. But Sunderland, wow, they left it late in extra time to beat Coventry. The tie looked like it was heading to penalties before a Dan Ballard header in stoppage time sealed the win for the Black Cats. Sheffield United looking to make an immediate return to the Premier League, whereas it's been 8 years since Sunderland last played in the top flight. And there's been managerial movements. After 2 years at the helm, Xavi Alonso has left Bundesliga runners-up Bayer Leverkusen. The former Liverpool and Spain midfielder has been linked to return to his former club Real Madrid to replace legendary manager Carlo Ancelotti. Todd, I know you're going to bring us up to speed with what's happening with him in just a moment, but it is, of course, a big step up for Alonso, who's only been a senior club manager for the last couple of seasons then in the Bundesliga, but he led Leverkusen, if you remember, to that league and cup double last season, winning the Bundesliga as Invincibles and finally getting the job done for Leverkusen because they'd been for so long the bridesmaid, never the bride, and they got it done in his first season. So it looks as though he's heading back to Spain. But where's Carlo going, Todd?
Well, here's the breaking news, and this is where Ancelotti is heading next because the Brazil national team has announced he will take over as their head coach. This is great news coming from South America. He will be the first non-Brazilian manager of the men's national team in, get this, 100 years. And just in case you didn't know, he's pretty much won everything in club football, including the top flight titles in Italy, England, France, Spain, of course, Germany, the FIFA Club World Cup 3 times over, and the UEFA Champions League. Also, the NHL is nearing the Stanley Cup finals and deciding what team will lift Lord Stanley's Cup in 2025. That's a big news. Will a Canadian team do that? Hasn't happened in a long time. Plus, the WNBA is back underway. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's second season, and the addition of rookie sensation Paige Beckers. Dallas just keeps getting richer and richer. But possibly the biggest news was the highly anticipated, I know you guys all stayed up to watch the release, the NFL schedule release, which took place last week. And there were definitely some winners and losers in who gets the most exposure in primetime slots, which is Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, to name just a few. Clearly, the league and the networks have made the Washington Commanders the darlings of the league, while the Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns, and New Orleans Saints were excluded from any primetime featured network airings in the regular season. Now, Kansas City, Dallas, and Philadelphia, they get 6 primetime slots throughout the season, which kicks off with a Dallas Cowboys versus Philadelphia Eagles opener on September 4th. And also worth noting, the LA Chargers win the Road Warriors Award as they will travel the most during the season. They will log, get this, nearly 37,000 miles over the season. Of course, that includes some international travel. And maybe the biggest news is the 7 international games that will be played around the world: London, Dublin, Berlin, Madrid, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. For NFL fans, guys, this is Christmas come in May.
That is unbelievable. I mean, that is absolutely spectacular to hear. And guys, on the other side of the planet, here in India, we've had some incredible, not so great news for cricket fans, but absolutely massive news breaking out over the last couple of weeks. First, it was Rohit Sharma, India's current Test captain, who retired. And then following that, just a few days ago, Virat Kohli has announced his retirement from Test cricket as well. And that means 2 giants, 1 chapter closed. And by doing so, just like that, India's dressing room is now void of 26,000 plus runs. You've got a few hundred cricketers worth of swagger in between both of them as well in there, and just an era of grit and greatness between them. But what it also means essentially is that we're seeing a generational shift now in leadership, in the temperament, and of the platform that they've built. I just wonder how the next generation will now carry the spirit of leadership and dominance that Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma created. But moving away from cricket, because that's kind of cliched when it comes to India, I'm going to go to the world of motorsport for my biggest feel-good story of the past couple of weeks. And it comes from the MotoGP, and it has to be Johann Zarco's win in a rain-affected, chaotic MotoGP race at his home in France at Le Mans. It had it all. It had drama, it had a win against the odds, it had strategy, it had rain. And while several others expected the rain to relent, he used his local knowledge, stayed on the wet tires, and in the end pulled off a 19-second lead over Marc Marquez, who continues to lead the championship because he went to damage limitation mode. But it's the first win for Honda since the Americas GP in 2023. And it honestly might go down as one of their most memorable MotoGP wins. We saw this incredible backflip in front of the grandstands from Johann Zarco. We saw tears and emotions running high in his face. And to me, it honestly gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because Ducati have dominated 2025. So for Honda to come in, for him to win in the wet at Le Mans in front of his home fans when no one expected it, that to me is my feel-good story.
I love that you put that, Suhail, because I've done MotoGP for many, many years. And yeah, if anybody, there's something about Johann Zarco, he has balls of steel, to put it crudely. So if anybody was going to gamble on tires, it would have been him. And he is one of the good guys. You know, he's got so much talent. He's a double Moto2 world champion, but he had a really tough season last time around with LCR. So it's great to see him back on the top step once again. Now, just a reminder, in between episodes, you can keep up to date with all the global sports news on our social channels and YouTube page, including full-length interviews with all of our guests. Give us a follow, subscribe, and share with all your friends and family. Plus, please do leave us a review as well.
All right, we are now just a few days away from Roland Garros, the second tennis Grand Slam of the year, which comes only a few weeks before Wimbledon. And it feels like the entire tennis world, naturally then, is heading to Northern Europe shortly. So before we kind of get stuck into who we think might come away with winning in Roland Garros and later on at Wimbledon, let's get your views on both of those tournaments. And have you ever been to any of them? Todd, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I have. Fortunate enough to have been to U.S. Open and Roland Garros, and as well as Wimbledon. And the thing I love about it, it's the variety. It's the variety of the sport that brings us back, because it is so different from the hard court surface in New York to the clay and to the grass. I mean, if you can master those three, you are literally a legend. But for me, the tradition, the history, everything in Wimbledon it just says summer, it says tennis, it says everything. But there's something about that clay court. I love seeing them when they hit their shoes, declare their shoes. I'm a shoe guy. I hate it seeing the shoes get dirty. So when they get all dirty and they're out there and they're sweaty, it's awesome to see. But I just love how they have to clean their shoes and they hit the racket on the bottom of their feet to clear it out. But it is such a different surface that I don't know. I'm a Carlos Alcaraz guy. I think he's got all the tools. I just think he is so talented. I don't even think he knows how much talent he has yet. So that's my 2 cents.
No, I mean, I'll start with Roland Garros. I've been lucky to visit on 3 occasions. Once was as a reporter back in 2016. That was the year that Rafa withdrew for the first time in his French Open career. And I still remember the commotion in the press center when the news filtered through. Everyone was like rushing to their live cross positions. And ours was actually right up in the stars, basically, at the top of Philippe Chatrier there. The second time was as a guest of Lacoste, so I got to experience what it was like to sit in the posh seats. That one was in 2019, so Rafa won his 12th title. And then the last time was last year during the Olympics, where Rafa was a real shadow of himself, losing in straight sets to Djokovic. And on all 3 occasions, one thing has stayed the same, though, for me, and that's the pride the French take in the fact that it is a very different surface. It's the only clay slam, but also that it is such a difficult surface. The preparation that goes into it, the unique difficulty it presents to play on it. I mean, you look at the likes of John McEnroe, Boris Becker, Pete Sampras, Martina Hingis, Lindsay Davenport, all multiple Grand Slam winners, never won the French. It is uniquely difficult. And, the crepes and the coffee are fantastic as well.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to say it's so different, right? And I think I've had the pleasure of being at hosting both for the host broadcasters in India across the years as well. I haven't had the luxury of being at Wimbledon as a Lacoste guest. I stayed in line from 3 in the morning. The hard way.
Did you do the queue? You didn't camp, did you, overnight?
I had to do it just because of the experience as well. But I think also, you're just going through the history of it, right? They're so different. But I think one of the best parts, and I agree with Edward, is the fact that some of the best players in the world get exposed at Roland Garros. And I think that's something that we're looking forward to seeing. And I don't mean to sound evil when I'm saying it, but you actually just get to see such a different breed of players. I mean, think about Yasmin Paolini, for instance. She would have been nowhere if not for Roland Garros turning up. Iga Swiatek now already on in line for greatness, but to go where she's going on the clay, to try and sort of emulate the likes of Rafa Nadal is scary to even think about, but she's already kind of there almost. And that's why for me, this year's Roland Garros is going to be so interesting to watch, because she's not a patch of herself. And we'll dive into that just a bit later. But just the fact that the dynamic of the clay just throws so much into the mental side of any top tennis player turning up at Roland Garros and at the French Open, that is.
See, I think, maybe I'm a Brit here. Obviously, I think Wimbledon is just mighty impressive.
Go on, wave your flag, Nat. Go on.
I can't help it. I can't help it.
Flag, Nat. Come on.
This is it. It's the oldest tennis tournament in the world, beginning in 1877. We know it's obviously the iconic green grass courts, the adherence to long-standing traditions of wearing white, for example, which was just deemed all the other colourful colours is just deemed unsuitable for tennis. So we have to all be matching with our white when we watch the players out there. And it has that little bit of elegance, I think, that they're all sort of matchy a little bit. Then you've got your strawberries and cream, for goodness sake.
Oh, there you go.
Come on, don't get me wrong.
Get the Pims going.
Pims and lemonade. There's just so many good things. And let's not forget the famous banked area, the little hill, which was obviously named Henman Hill for a while. Then it was Murray Mound, Raducanu Ridge. I'm hoping this year it might become Draper Downland. Yeah, I had to Google the alliteration and had to find something that had a hill meaning, and a downland is a gently rolling hill. So I'm looking forward to a Draper Downland this time around.
Can you have a Draper Dale? The Vales, Dales, and Yorkshire Dales? Is that a hill or is that flat?
Not the Draper Ditch. You won't do that.
Yeah,
we don't want to do
ditch. It goes downhill pretty quick. He'll be the Draper Dune.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so yes, I'm a little bit biased. I've been to Wimbledon a couple of times. The first time I ever went, I did the whole queuing thing, and it poured down with rain pretty much all day. So I think they played like one game, or not even a whole set. It was a couple of games, and we didn't get our money back because they had played a few rounds of tennis, so we didn't get our money back at that time. But thankfully, I've done it posh as well.
while we might have experienced attending the biggest tennis tournaments in the world as broadcasters or fans, we cannot tell you what it's like to play on the courts. And that's why I wanted to catch up with someone who has. Mark Woodforde is a 12-time Grand Slam doubles champion, winning at all 4 tournaments, and has reached the 4th round at both Roland Garros and Wimbledon in the singles. And I had a chance to catch up with him from his home in California. Each of the Grand Slams kind of have characters in themselves when you talk about the patrons. How would you describe the fans in the stands at Roland Garros, and how are they different from, say, Wimbledon or Melbourne Park or in New York?
Yeah, well, I think for the probably to I guess term each of them, the Australian Open is commonly is what known as the Happy Slam. It's the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Everyone's
yeah.
fresh and it's summer. Australians are on holidays, and a lot of kids are not at school because of school holidays, and so they flock to the courts, and probably are quite well versed as far as tennis knowledge.
Yeah.
Paris, it's the fashion slam. The crowds are passionate. And that's the aspect that I love about being there at Roland Garros. Probably didn't always enjoy it as a tennis player,
Right.
but as a commentator now, I mean, you go there, the fans, it's like the roof on Chatrier and Longlen, the 2 major courts. If there is a French player, or
Yeah.
if it's a really highly competitive singles match between 2 foreigners, the French, they get in there and they are there, and it's almost like they lift the roof off of both of those stadiums, and the roar of the crowd is probably unlike any of as I said, you've got the history of Wimbledon, you've got the circus-like atmosphere that is pertaining to the US Open, but I think that's what, Roland Garros is the appeal for fans and for players these days. And of course, it doesn't help that the French Federation, they've got a number of male players at the moment that are just kind of knocking on the door. They may not end up holding the trophy at the end of the 2 weeks, but they are there competing and probably will go deep into the second week.
Tennis is such a character sport, and the ambience of the locations. You go from the down and dirty, rough and tumble, literally dirty Roland Garros with clay on your shoes and your treads, to the dainty all white grass of Wimbledon. And the folks at Wimbledon do a magnificent job caring for those courts. But you do, of any other Grand Slam, any other tournament, you are going to play a different surface from day one that you will if you make it to the championship, because you see the wear marks even after all that. You get to the end, and I remember as a little kid watching Wimbledon thinking, surely they could have got a clean grass court out there. What's going on here? It's just dirt on the baseline. They've worn it out. Is that hard to adjust to, that, if you make it to that final, that this is not going to be like day one?
Well, you like me. I mean, there's some classic photos, aerial shots of
Yes.
Wimbledon at the start of the tournament. Beautifully lush green turf, unmarked, and then you get to the end of the tournament, and look, during my time, you'd probably see the wear and tear around the service line, because you
Right.
were always serve and volleying. You were trying to get to net as often as possible. And I remember there were times, I mean, my first Wimbledon title came in 1993, and I played the mixed doubles final the day before the men's doubles final. And my partner was Martina Navratilova. And I remember
Wow.
walking out onto on the Friday for the final, and she walked out into the middle of the court, and she motioned for me to come over. So I was standing there, and she said, "Now just have a look." And I'm sure the All England Club probably don't appreciate me talking about it, but she was pointing down to the cracks in the court, in the service box, that had arrived over the last 2 weeks from the constant play, the wear and tear. And she'd say, "Now, if you can serve and hit that particular mark, you're going to get this incredible bounce, and the chances increases of you winning the point." And she was going around and assessing, because she had all this experience from the years of her playing in her lengthy career, that was vital for her. So it's just those small areas can make a big difference. And that's what I learned the following day when I went out and played the men's doubles final with Todd. And so I kind of felt like I was Martina. I was like, Todd, come over here, have a look at these little cracks on the court, because if we can hit those marks, we increase the chances of winning. But of course, now, as I mentioned earlier, the surface has changed. We don't see the wear and tear too much around the service line. We see the wear and tear on the baseline. And you actually see the groundsmen do a magnificent job of overnight. They patch up the court. They put in some fresh turf just to try and make it look good for people watching, whether they're there watching live or for a lot of us watching at home on TV. But it becomes a bit of a, dare I say, a bit of a dust bowl. It's not crater-like, but it is a sort of an indentation around the baseline, because so much tennis these days, even on grass, is played on the baseline. So they're just the subtle differences that grass is how it's presented and what the players have to contend with these days.
Well, let me get this from you, because I can't let you go without getting your predictions. Who do you like on the men's side and the women's side for Wimbledon this summer?
I'm going to go with Alcaraz, simply, given his performances over the last couple of years. And as I said, he finds the transition to be less strenuous, or there's less anxiety for him to actually, or less trouble for him to transition from clay over to the grass. And Aryna Sabalenka, her game, I've mentioned probably a couple of times in the chat already. I feel like the players that win these major titles, they have to have some weapons. They have to have that ability to finish the points. It's not just a defense that sets them apart from the rest of the playing field, but is the offensive play. She hits the ball big from the baseline. That serve of hers, I think she's kind of tasted defeat a number of times at Wimbledon, when she's probably been in the position of being one of the favorites. So I think sometimes when you reflect back, when you win, you win. When you lose, you learn. She's had a few losses that probably have really disappointed her, but I think she's going to be ready for this year's Wimbledon.
And then I'll do it in reverse. Who do you like for Roland Garros?
Look, I might go with my fellow ginger, which is Jannik Sinner. I often say that he's my son, and his coach is Darren Cahill, who I grew up with in Adelaide, and we have a bit of a laugh. But I think my son has, he's very fresh, and obviously coming back from the suspension for 3 months. He's been able to work on his game, work on his body, work on his mind. And I think he's going to be very, very hard to beat at Roland Garros.
Who do you like on the women's side? Because the women's side seems a lot more wide open.
I actually think the winner from last week, Jasmine Paolini, she's just a street fighter on the clay courts. This is the surface for her. And I think, given I think the pressures of winning at home, and there is nothing greater when you're playing a major tournament in front of your home crowd. And she was able to navigate her way through the draw last week and come up victorious. So, whilst Roland Garros is obviously it's a slam, so we're considering that the highest of level. I actually think because she's come through in Rome, she's going to be very, very difficult to beat when we get to Roland Garros.
And remember, you can hear my full chat with Mark over on our YouTube channel. Okay, so we heard from Mark there about his predictions. Now it's time for us to put our necks on the line. Suhail, I'll start with you. Roland Garros, who do you like and why?
Oh, man, this is a tough one. On the men's side, I mean, I just watched Jannik Sinner dispatch of Casper Ruud, love and 1, I think it was, and I just thought he looked incredible. So we didn't see the best of him perhaps last year for several reasons, with the cloud of the doping ban and all of that. But I actually think Jannik Sinner comes in, even though it's not his favorite surface, as one of the favorites. You can't ignore Carlos Alcaraz. I'm going to say blockbuster Alcaraz, Alcaraz to go the distance as a second seed and try and get the job done. I'm an Alcaraz fan, but I think the only threat is going to be Jannik Sinner to get the job done as well. On the female side, however, I actually think I'm going to call an upset. I don't think Iga Swiatek for me is going to go out and win this. You've got Coco Gauff for me, who's a favorite. Arina Sabalenka is another. But I'm going to throw in a dark horse in Qinwen Zheng. I just
No, that was my dark horse.
There you go. Sorry, Edward. Had to steal it in there, but I think Qinwen Zheng, she's got the game. She's got power. She's got great court coverage as well, but she's also got incredible all-round game, which is suited to the clay. I mean, you're not going to get quick 1-2 points on the clay, and she doesn't need necessarily to look for it. Her fitness is through the roof as well. And yeah, well, you can't ignore her and you can't ignore Yasmin Paolini, but Qinwen Zheng, for me, my dark horse.
Go on, Ed, you might as well give us more as to why we should be backing her then as well.
Well, no, you might as well just call me Suhail Chandhok because we've got exactly the same predictions.
You're in good company.
I was going to go for Sinner Alcaraz final on the men's side. Sinner to take that one, but Alcaraz to get his own back at Wimbledon. And then I think, on the female side, Zheng was the last female player to win at Roland Garros at the Olympics, of course. She beat Sabalenka in straight sets in the Italian Open quarters, and she pushed Coco all the way in that 3.5-hour semi-final as well. Even at the tail end of last year, she was good. The WTA final, she made the final there, and I just think that everyone's getting a little bit too obsessed about Swiatek and Sabalenka, and I think perhaps when you mention one of you guys, I'm relying on someone to go with the favorite here, then we can explain why not. But I do think Zheng Qinwen could go all the way.
Also, I'm going to throw the Paris Olympics in there. She had a good run there, obviously, so that helps.
All right, Nat.
Oh, see, I find it very difficult to look past Carlos Alcaraz. I just adore him. There's so much to love about him. And what he's accomplished already in such a short time is just simply remarkable. I do think that, obviously, we know he can be successful on the clay, but I do think he's slightly better suited to the grass just because of his movement, his ability. He loves to get into the net, which I know can mean that you can lose points, but he just loves it. He's so quick and dynamic, and I do err towards the grass, maybe just being slightly better for him. But like I say, we've also seen what he can do on clay, and I just absolutely adore him. The women's side of things, I think, and it's great that you've brought up, names that people might not necessarily be looking out for. It is for me, so much more open than the men's. I think it's very difficult to look past Iga Swiatek just because you feel as though she is the queen of clay, really. But then Arina Sabalenka is doing really, really well. I also think Elina Svitolina, she's done really well on clay recently. She's someone to look out for. Reached the semi-finals at Madrid. She's won on clay at the Rouen Open as well in France. And so I find the women's one really difficult to call. So that's why I'm quite happy that you two have named someone that I hadn't even looked at and hadn't considered, which is a real annoyance for me. But probably I will have to go for Iga Swiatek, which, come on then, you're going to hit me with that. No, she's not going to be the one to beat.
I'm going Alcaraz, and I'm going Coco Gauff for the simple reason they both have signature shoes. I like signature shoes, so we're going with that. I'm back to the sneakers again. Sorry, Suhail. All right, now we're going to switch gears. Let's go to Wimbledon. We'll start with you, Nat. First word, and we'll make Edward go last this time. Who you like and why?
Well, obviously, I've already mentioned Carlos Alcaraz. I just think he's absolutely superb when it comes to the grass. Obviously, my heart is also thinking Jack Draper. Wouldn't it be lovely for him to just continue this incredible year that he's already having? And, there's something I imagine, yes, it comes with pressure being a Brit at a home major, but equally, I think that can carry you through sometimes. And I just think to reach world number 5, he is just having an incredible season, and I just hope that, as I say, he can go well in Roland Garros to kind of spur him on to do even better at Wimbledon. But of course, the funny thing is, it's such a quick turnaround to go from the clay, a slightly slower surface, obviously, to the fast grass court. So yes, I can't look beyond Carlos Alcaraz when it comes to the men at Wimbledon. He's so aggressive. His striker, the way he can strike the ball, I think he just benefits from the speed of the grass. So yeah, as I say, I absolutely love him. And when it comes for the women, well, I mean, Madison Keys not a bad one to look out for. She's done tremendously well, having won the Australian Open, of course, and she has beaten Iga Swiatek in some incredible matches. And sometimes people say Swiatek obviously is the one to look out for. So yeah, and she says that grass is her favourite surface, and maybe, what was she, about 30 now? It's time for her to deliver on the grass courts. So she'd have to get past her best, which is the quarterfinals, but there's no time like the present.
It's not a bad time, Natalie, to pick that as well, because of the last 8 years, we've had 8 different ladies singles winners at
Exactly.
Wimbledon. So, hey, Madison Keys could fall nicely into that as well. But I might as well just jump in here on Wimbledon, guys. Before I get there, Nat, I'm just going to just set the record straight for everyone. You adore him. You love him. You could watch him all day. Let's just say that. Carlos Alcaraz, Nat Sawyer,
that
could
really
watch you
obvious?
all day. She adores you. Just saying that again. Just
She wants to drape herself over him.
Oh, wow.
I would like
Edward.
I'd like to say I love him from a mother perspective, shall we say?
I see.
We're going to
Just to
edit
cover
that bit out.
myself.
You do know we're going to edit that bit out. Thanks. Yeah. We'll park that aside. I'm going to go Arina Sabalenka, though, for Wimbledon. I just think the raw power of Arina Sabalenka, she's hungry for success as well. If she doesn't get that success at Roland Garros, it'll make her even more hungry for success at Wimbledon. I'd like to see a deep run for Jack Draper. However, I think it's still going to be in that Henman sort of stage of a quarter or a semi, and I just don't think he has the legs to go further. I'm going to go again. I mean, it's just too obvious. Sinner, Alcaraz. However, I'm going to say Yannick Sinner to win at Wimbledon, and that's my take. I'm a Carlos Alcaraz fan, but I'm going to go Yannick Sinner at Wimbledon to get past Carlos Alcaraz. Alcaraz to gruel it out and grit it out on the clay. Yannick Sinner with that counter punch on the 1-2 on the grass. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got Alcaraz, Wimbledon winner, and Sabalenka, I think. As you said, Suhail, I don't think she's going to win the French. Weirdly, a lot of people out there on the internet saying, it's her title to lose, but we said that about her at the Australian Open this year. She only dropped one settled tournament, then see what happened in the final against Keys, and then how she pretended to urinate on the runners-up trophy. Anyway, because she's never made a final at Roland Garros, and that hasn't always been her best tournament, and she hasn't always performed the best in finals there. And I think, as you mentioned, the margins that she has over the top players is just not as massive on clay. But when it gets to grass, her sheer power is really going to carry her through to that win. So, yeah, I'm going to go for Alcaraz and Sabalenka on the grass.
Good choices. Well, Neil Sinner's going to be well rested, so we'll see how he does. But I'm with you. I think he does well on the grass, and I think after a French, Alcaraz gets that done. I think it might be Sinner's time to shine on the grass. On the women's side, I think it's just so more wide open. Women's tennis right now is entering such a great phase that there's so many talented women that could win this. I'm going to push and take the field because I don't think there's any one person that's like clear cut dominate.
Yeah, you think about it. I mean, you had Barbara Strechikova, earlier. You've had Rybakina. I'd love to see her come back into it because she's had a horrific year, honestly, with everything that's gone on with the coaches off the court as well. I'd love to see a deep run for Rybakina. She's just moved out of the conversation.
Just on the subject of Alcaraz at Wimbledon, of course, he's got back-to-back titles and 90% win rate, but I found out the secret to his success, and it's not time in the gym, it's not tirelessly studying his opponents or getting used to the grass at SW19. No, it's partying hard in Ibiza. So there's this new Netflix documentary, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called Carlos Alcaraz, My Way, and he describes how he goes against the advice of his team, and he decides to let his hair down in Ibiza. This happened in 2023, and he said that he needed to go there to, well, the word in Spanish that translated to English was burst. But basically, it helped him to let off steam after he lost to Djokovic in the 2023 French Open semis after suffering with nerves and cramps. And obviously it worked because a few years later, he went on to beat Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. That was in 23. And it worked so well that he went back and did it again in 2024 and won the title again. So I think as long as he makes that a trilogy of visits to Ibiza, then it's going to be a trilogy of Wimbledon triumphs as well.
Can I just say, though, no one has mentioned Djokovic. I mean, this is a man that is hungry for one more, guys. It's a big one, and we got no faith in our panel. I think, obviously, his best tennis is behind him, but does he dig deep and pull like a Jimmy Connors and pull the magic back in against these youngsters that are coming up? I don't know what event he can get it done at. If Alcaraz and Sinner are involved, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
I also think when you look at it now, there's no Andy Murray in his corner. And I think there was a little bit of a comfort factor with Andy Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we mentioned Ibiza before we mentioned Novak Djokovic doesn't bode well for Novak.
That's all on Edward Russell. That is all on Edward Russell.
Exactly. But I think when you look at it now and the timing of this announcement, right, you've got Andy Murray and Novak Djokovic splitting up before this run of 2 Grand Slams back-to-back.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not so surprised because they came together to do one thing, that is win tournaments, and they've not won any. forget a Grand Slam. They've not won any tournaments yet together. And I just think he's got to just find something that's completely different. And maybe the comfort of having someone who understood him and has gone through the rigors of what he's gone through isn't what he needs. Maybe he needs something left field, something out of the box, something out of the ordinary, which is kind of what he's done in his career, whether it's go gluten free, whether it's completely change his fitness routines. Maybe it's something that Djokovic needs at this stage of his career, because let's face it, he is a true great at the game, and he's not going to really sit still until he gets number 25, which is the only thing that's going to put him in a different stratosphere.
Well, maybe he needs to go to Ibiza and hang out with Carlos Alcaraz. But no, I do. There was something really romantic about him having Murray in his box. I don't know. I just kind of put myself into the head of Novak Djokovic, and I feel a bit sorry for him. You know, all his good mates have left the circuit. There's this new generation that he knows he's not going to be able to compete with for long, if at all. So at least he's got Andy there for a little bit of a comfort blanket, as you mentioned. But I know he wants to get to 25 so badly. But honestly, where's the motivation? He won the Olympic gold. For him, that was it, right? He's come full circle. He's done everything he wanted to achieve in that sense. I just don't know whether he really, truly has the motivation to go anymore, even though he wants that 25, because he's already far and away the best in terms of Grand Slam wins. I don't think anybody's going to catch 24 again. And whereas the likes of Federer and Nadal knew when to quit, or at least their bodies knew when to tell them to quit, I just feel like somebody needs to tell Novak, it's okay, man. You're good.
Yeah,
24 is not
You're
terrible.
a legend. You're a legend.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I know.
But if he doesn't get it this summer, Nat, if he doesn't get it this summer, does he get it, or when does he get it?
I say no. If he doesn't do it this year, if he doesn't do it at the US Open, I think, or actually, I'm going to say, hang on, AO 2026. If he doesn't do it before AO 2026, I think that's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree the French Open is beyond him now, without a doubt. I agree with you, Suhail. I think it'll be a hard court. If he's going to win anything, it'll be one of those. You know, do you know what's really sad in a way as well with the whole Murray thing coming to an end so quickly is I was kind of looking forward to seeing Murray in his corner at Wimbledon, having that kind of, oh, look who's in his box, it's Murray. That would have been quite fun, but we're kind of being denied that, and that's really unfair. Thanks, Djokovic. But what was really interesting is when they did pair up, did you ever see what Daniel Medvedev said when he referred to it as, it's like Messi being the coach of Cristiano Ronaldo, which I quite liked. That's how great these two players are seen, of course, on the circuit. So it's a shame that it didn't work, but I can get where you're coming from, Suhail, that actually when you have two players, one obviously still playing, who's achieved so much in the game, they're going to have a different view of how they've done that.
Yeah.
And I sometimes just don't see that can work as well as you say, Suhail, bringing in someone that maybe has never got to that top level, but is an extraordinary coach.
Yeah, and I think the game has changed, right? I think when you look at how he was up against a Roger Federer who had elegance and brilliant stroke play, the game has now become physical. You've got 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds. Think of a Nishesh Basavareddy who stretched him at the Australian Open. It was just complete physicality, right? And I think when you're thinking 5 sets, it's really hard for someone of Djokovic's stature and given where he's at in his career at the moment to go toe-to-toe with this physicality of modern-day tennis for 5 sets. And I think that's where, for me, I see this being a really hard chase for him. And I mentioned Nishesh Basavareddy because there's a little bit of an Indian play there. And India's tennis has been, unfortunately, when it comes to singles, a really, really rough ride since the 60s. I mean, we had Somdev Devvarman, inside the top 75 in the world. We had Leander Paes, who somehow pulled off an Olympic bronze medal, back at Atlanta. But apart from that, Indian tennis outside of Mahesh Bhupathi, Leander Paes, Rohan Bopanna now, and Sania Mirza has been bleak. And the reason I bring that up is because we're now potentially might see a change where OCI holders, which is overseas citizens of India, might be granted the ability to represent India, which means Nishesh Basavareddy, who almost beat Novak Djokovic, Rajiv Ram, who's a 6-time Grand Slam winner, might actually be allowed to represent India. Not that Rajiv Ram is going to at the age of 40, whatever, but it changes a lot of things for Indian tennis because a lot of youngsters go across to America, start playing college tennis, and then get themselves an American citizenship, and they lost out for Indian tennis forever since then. So I think a lot is changing. India's got 9 doubles players inside the top 150. This doubles dream of India is a new program that Rohan Bopanna started. So just coming closer to home, just for fans of tennis in India who are losing hope and hope and hope. India's doubles dream is doing a great job. 5 players inside the top 100, 9 inside the top 150. But hopefully, this little change that might come in for Indian football and for Indian tennis, and we actually talked about this a little bit, Edward, didn't we, in our last pod as well, about dual citizenship and people coming in and playing for another country. If that happens for India, maybe we could see one breakout star like a Nishesh Basavareddy who might opt to play for India, which means Olympics, Asian Games, and other sort of bigger events like the Davis Cup as well.
So we've given you our thoughts on who could win Wimbledon, but before that, the French Open. And obviously, Jannik Sinner will make his first appearance in a major since winning the Australian Open. But in between, having that ban that he went through, he's been speaking about it and how he's had to retain his peak fitness. And that was always going to be a challenge for him, you could imagine. Here's how he felt since returning to competitive action.
Well, physically, the first match was okay. I recovered quite good. Obviously, matches they're a bit different. The impact our body has is for sure different than only practice sessions. But no, I feel good. I started off very well today. Then I had this drop, which usually this drop is 1.5 games. Today was 3 games, 3.5 games. But it's normal. It's the second match I play in 3.5 months. It's long time. As I said, every chance I have to play one more match is a very positive.
Well, Sinner is hotly tipped to make it to the final, at least, of Roland Garros. And who could he meet there? Perhaps Carlos Alcaraz. Talking of clay, someone who's looking forward to playing on that surface is the Spaniard.
I just feeling that I'm playing a great tennis on clay. I think I started the clay season really well. Obviously, it was the same that I got injured after Barcelona, but it's always difficult to be in a good shape, during the whole swings or the whole tournament. So just to accept it, just to keep it going, try to recover as good as I can and as fast as I can. So I'm just happy to feeling the good rhythm, to feeling the good tennis again on clay here in Rome, and obviously these matches makes or gave me a lot of confidence.
And just finally, let's hear from someone who was full of praise for Carlos Alcaraz, none other than Novak Djokovic. The Serb says the Spaniard still has time on his side to match and surpass the achievements of himself, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal.
Yes, there was domination, obviously, from Rafa on clay or Roger on grass. Me on hard court, would win, 3-4 years in a row, Indian Wells and Miami back-to-back. But that also came, for me personally, that level of, I guess, dominant tennis and achievements when I was 23-4 years old, and then after that. So between, let's say, 23 and 33 was when it was really happening. And Alcaraz is still not 23. So we have to remember that his age and what he has done for his age is not also normal, and I'm sure that we'll see a lot of him on the big stage with trophies in the future, 10 years, 15 years, as long as he's playing. The competition is always there. I think every generation has its different competition. It's hard to compare eras. The last 20 years was dominated mostly by the four of us. And obviously when the three of my biggest rivals retired, then, you can feel there's a shift, not only in terms of the generations of players that are coming now, all of a sudden, the main focus and attention is on them, but it's just, I guess, it takes a little bit of time for people to accept the fact that Roger and Rafa are not playing, and Murray, and I guess one day myself, but I'm still trying to stay there and represent the older guys, the older generation.
And that's just fascinating stuff from Djokovic. Remember, you can hear the latest from the biggest names in the world of sport on our social media channels and on YouTube. Before we go, it's time to find out what we're all looking forward to in the next few weeks. It's time for Any Other Business.
So, not only do we have the Championship playoff final to look forward to, it's also a month of European finals. Inter Milan and PSG will battle it out to win the Champions League. Two of the Premier League sides who have had terrible domestic campaigns by their standards will go head-to-head in Bilbao for the Europa League as Tottenham take on Manchester United tonight, and Chelsea head to Poland to face Real Betis in the UEFA Conference League final as well. And let's not forget the Women's Champions League final too. That is coming up with Arsenal taking on Barcelona in Lisbon as they look to outsmart one of the most successful sides in the competition. And don't forget, you can catch up with my chat with the former England and Arsenal striker Leanne Sanderson for more on that final, as well as the summer's Euros. That's on our This Sporting Planet YouTube channel. And don't forget, with the European football season coming to an end, the summer transfers will start to ramp up, and it has been agreed that we're going to have two windows. The first will open on June the 1st until June the 10th. That's for an exceptional registration period for the expanded Club World Cup. So all clubs will be free to do business during that earlier window, but it also gives those teams participating that chance to bring in new players ahead of the tournament. So for example, Real Madrid are hoping perhaps to negotiate a slightly earlier release of Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract from Liverpool, which runs out at the end of June. But if they can get it done before, then he'll be able to play at the Club World Cup. The main window will then reopen on June the 16th until the deadline day of Monday, September the 1st.
Brilliant, great updates from the world of football there. Moving away to a sport that does not require a ball, the Pro Kabaddi auction is coming your way on the 31st of May and the 1st of June. And it honestly changes the lives of over 200 players. Just to give you guys a bit of context, the first auction, which was back in 2014, the top selling player went for about £12,000 roughly. Today, in 2024, 2025, we're looking at players going for £250,000 for just 3 months of work in the sport of Pro Kabaddi, watched by over 200 million people around the world. So that auction's coming up, and I'll throw my CEO hat on for that one with you, Mumba. We then have the inaugural Rugby Sevens Premier League in India, again set to take off this June. Players from around the world, 30 marquee players from Australia, South Africa, Fiji, England, and the works turning up for sevens. So that's going to be great to watch. India's going to get their first real taste of Rugby Sevens. And finally, in a few days' time, the IPL playoffs will start to unravel itself. There's some serious heat still in terms of who's going to make those playoffs. GT, RCB, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings, Delhi Capitals, KKR, all in the mix. But the final now being rescheduled for the 3rd of June. So plenty of action from the world of sport right here in India.
A quick one on Formula One, because now begins a run of 5 races where Alpine reserve driver Franco Colapinto will take over from Jack Doohan. Doohan, of course, faced very early speculation over his position after Alpine signed Colapinto to their roster of reserve drivers, the Argentinian having impressed as a substitute for Williams across 9 races last season. And it was announced after Miami round 6 that the seat would be rotated, which is such a weird thing that's happening in Formula One these days, with Doohan nevertheless remaining an integral part of the team. Now look, we saw this with Liam Lawson as well. Just give these kids some time, please. They've gone to 4 out of 6 tracks that have been new for the rookies before they even get to the European season, where they're more akin to the tracks. They've been on them, they've raced on them. They're getting rid of them already. Mick Doohan was our MotoGP pundit on Fox Sports when I was presenting it. And so me being friends with his dad has put up some stuff on Instagram comparing the results of his son over the first few races to Gasly's, and there's not that much of a difference, to be honest. And look, Alpine's car is not the greatest in the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if Colapinto finishes this run of 5 races with nil point either. And then where do we go from there? I don't know.
Well, in the Americas, it's the NBA Draft Lottery, which took place this past week, and this is an event that decides in what order teams will draft based on this season's record. Now, the Utah Jazz, Charlotte Hornets, and Washington Wizards, with the 3 of the worst records in the league, they have the best chance of getting the first pick at 14.5% in this ping pong ball bouncing system. And the chance of getting that number 1 pick, wouldn't you know it, none of those teams had the odds go in their favor, as the Dallas Mavericks, with this, get this, a 1.8% chance of getting the top pick, 1 out, and they now have the first selection in next month's draft. And it should be no mystery, as Duke freshman sensation 18-year-old Cooper Flagg is expected to play in Dallas next season with the likes of Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, barring a trade, but don't count on that. Flagg is that good, and any trade would have to involve a current NBA superstar. namely something to the level of Giannis Antetokounmpo, but even that, I'm not hearing that that's going to be that big of a movement. So, plus, I also want to mention that Sail GP is back on the water after canceling their event in Rio in May due to concerns over wing sail stability in all 12 of the national team boats, but now it is back, and what a way to come back on the waters of New York City, Hudson Bay, Governor's Island in the background. The whole skyline will be lit up. Sail GP converging on the Big Apple in the first week of June. And none other than DJ Khaled serving as their chief hype officer. That is a great position. Natalie, you need to be the chief hype officer for this Sporting Planet.
Oh, I was going to say for Carlos Alcaraz, but for this Sporting Planet as well. Absolutely.
It's just going to involve you saying your name again and again.
Exactly.
Natalie Sawyer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is it for this episode. Make sure to subscribe to the show via your favourite podcast provider so you never miss an episode.
Our next episode will be dropping on Wednesday, the 4th of June, where we'll be looking back on the European football seasons.
So if you've got any thoughts about your favorite team, how they're doing, your favorite player, how they've done this year, we would love to hear about them on our social channels as well. So send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok.
And we look forward to reading all those messages. Until next time, for myself, Natalie, Edward, Suhail, and the whole This Sporting Planet team, thanks for listening.